and welcome to episode 3 of the Narrative Engineer podcast. Not long ago, an NGO leadership team requested a strategic document to help improve their social media performance. During our alignment process, their primary focus was entirely on being viral. They wanted the exact formula for creating viral moments and specifically asked to see which of my previous campaigns had achieved the highest absolute reach. This interaction highlights a very common vulnerability in our industry. It shows that many organizations still misunderstand how digital platforms and their native metrics should actually be leveraged for institutional storytelling and long-term brand building. If you are leading communications for a global NGO, public sector agency, or a major enterprise, you're likely required to provide reports that can prove the return on investment of your narrative. And if you're like the most of us, you feel required to present a dashboard that focuses heavily on volume. You are showing impressions, advertising value equivalents, website traffic spikes, and social media likes, for example. Beside one's desire to meet reporting expectations, this also happens because these metrics are readily available and incredibly easy to measure. And if you are like most of us, you feel required to present a dashboard that focuses heavily on volume. You are showing impressions, advertising value equivalents, website traffic spikes, and social media likes. Now, beside one's desire to meet reporting expectations, this also happens because these metrics are available and incredibly easy to measure. But there is a weakness in this approach. These metrics describe communication outputs. They do not describe organizational outcomes. Today, we're discussing boardrooms' reliance on what we call vanity metrics and how we should replace them with a framework we call the metrics of authority. Now let's remind ourselves of the fundamental definition of strategic communications, which answers a very specific but very rigorous question: what do you need to tell whom to achieve your goal? In this light, at the end of the day, the metric that matters most is how much the needle moves toward achieving your operational objectives through your communication efforts. If only 5 specific policymakers or major donors have the power to make your initiative a reality, then you only need to reach those 5 people. Reaching 10 million random people on social platforms is a suboptimal use of resources, especially if those 5 key stakeholders are not paying attention. The baseline rule of institutional storytelling is this: the number of people reached is nowhere near as important as who gets reached. We also need to clarify exactly what kind of content we are measuring. Not all media is storytelling. It is entirely possible to successfully reach your target audience using sensationalism, highly polarized messaging, or even rage bait posts. Those tactics will absolutely spike your metrics, but they will actively erode public trust. Storytelling operates differently. Storytelling is the most effective vehicle for institutional communication because it elicits specific human emotions that are inextricably linked to factual information. When an audience feels empathy, hope, or even urgency, their brain physically encodes that information more deeply. The message becomes memorable. This memorable information then fosters a sense of positivity and reliability, which becomes directly linked to your organization as trust. That linkage is the foundation of brand building. We tell stories not to entertain, but to structurally engineer how our institutions are perceived and remembered. The global communications industry has been gradually waking up to that reality, but many executive dashboards are lagging behind. Consider the findings of the 2025 Ragan Communications Benchmark Report. Ragan is one of the premier publishers of corporate communications news and training, and their annual benchmark report analyzes how thousands of professionals across the globe actually operate. Their recent data revealed a startling reality. While most organizations actively measure their communications, only a tiny fraction consider their measurement practices to be advanced or sophisticated. Most are still relying on open rates and clicks, while very few are measuring actual behavior change. This aligns perfectly with the AMEC Barcelona Principles. AMEC is the International Association for Measurement and Evaluation of Communication, essentially the global governing body for PR research and analytics. Their Barcelona Principles serves as the industry gold standard for measuring success. And their core mandate explicitly argues that the evaluation of communications must move beyond measuring outputs. You cannot simply count how many press releases you sent or how many likes a video received. You must measure the changes in stakeholder attitudes, behaviors, and institutional performance. So if impressions and likes are vanity metrics, what should a chief communications officer actually put on their executive scorecard? For an advanced narrative engineering framework, your dashboard should include 4 headline indicators. Let us break those down. Trust is not a soft, qualitative perception metric. It is a hard, leading indicator of future stakeholder behavior. Research consistently demonstrates that trust is the primary determinant of whether a stakeholder will believe, advocate for, or fund an institution. But data should not only be used for reporting what happened in the past, it is arguably more important for planning what happens next. Let's look at a concrete example. Suppose you run a survey or track sentiment analysis, and the data shows that your audience's trust in your organization spikes specifically when you highlight the voices of local community leaders rather than your own executive staff. Of course, you don't just put that in a report. You use that metric of authority to plan your next quarter. You intentionally design your upcoming field deployments to capture local, on-the-ground perspectives and fine-tune your communication to double down on what genuinely builds trust. Institutional storytelling exists entirely to shape how stakeholders understand your organization. Yet, many communicators still focus on share of voice, trying to be louder than everyone else. Volume is entirely irrelevant if the audience does not adopt the story. We must replace share of voice with share of trust. A highly effective metric here is the extent to which stakeholders, both internal and external, cite your stories when they speak to a third party. We call this indirect listening. When a target audience member mentions your stories to others or cites a specific fact, figure, or project location from your content, you know the narrative has taken root. Or you might hear from a peer who says, the other day, the minister of so-and-so mentioned your organization and referenced that specific initiative of yours. These conversations often happen in meetings. They can happen in hallway discussions, in social events, through informal channels, text messages, and so forth. When you can actively listen for narrative adoption, you can plan future content that expands on the exact story threads your stakeholders are already repeating to each other. The most important lesson from modern measurement literature is that communications must be evaluated based on what people do. Are your stories driving membership renewals? Are they driving policy support? Are they increasing volunteer recruitment, media inquiries, or investor confidence? Internally, is your narrative driving the adoption of change and new initiative? Again, this is a planning tool. If your objective is to increase recurring donations and your data shows that highly produced, studio-lit videos generate high viewership but zero donations, while raw, unpolished field updates generate lower viewership but high conversion rates, your path forward is very clear. You stop allocating budget to the corporate studio, and you plan more direct to-camera field dispatches. Again, this is a planning tool. If your objective is to increase recurring donations and your data shows that Highly produced studio-lit videos generate high viewership but zero donations, while raw, unpolished field updates generate lower viewership but higher conversion rates. Your path forward is very clear. You stop allocating budget to the corporate studio and you plan more direct-to-camera field dispatches. You let the behavioral outcome dictate the strategy. And finally, number 4, long-term brand equity. This is where we see executive dashboards falling short the most. Many organizations try to judge institutional storytelling by quarterly metrics, even though its true purpose is long-term reputation building. Now, what exactly do we mean by brand equity in this context? Brand equity is the accumulated value of your organization's name and identity. It is the reason why, when a natural disaster strikes, the public instinctively searches for donation pages of established organizations like the Red Cross or Doctors Without Borders, without needing to be targeted by any ad. Brand equity is the premium a donor is willing to pay. It is the ease with which you can recruit top-tier talent. It is the benefit of the doubt the public gives you during an operational crisis. Brand equity is a bit like your reputation, but there are some differences. Reputation is what people think of you. Brand equity is the measurable value of what they think. We can use a financial analogy to explain this. Reputation is your credit score. It is an evaluation that fluctuates based on your recent history and behavior. Brand equity is the actual purchasing power, the line of credit, or the favorable interest rates the bank offers you because of your credit score. When an organization over-optimizes for immediate, short-term metrics, like trying to force a viral moment, it often damages its long-term equity. For universities, NGOs, and government agencies, your primary objective is to strengthen stakeholder preference and organizational legitimacy over the years, not quarters. This shift in mindset from measuring exposure to measuring outcomes is the defining line between a legacy communications team and a modern narrative architecture. But I would like to hear how this aligns with the realities you face within your own organizations. What metrics are your boards or leadership teams currently demanding that you feel are suboptimal? Have you successfully transitioned your organization away from vanity metrics? And if so, what indicators finally convinced them? Please share your experiences in the comments below. We read every piece of feedback, and your insights actively shape the topics we tackle in future episodes. Let us know what specific communication friction points you would like us to discuss next, and we will look into it. If you want to know exactly how your current measurement framework might be limiting your organization's growth, visit the link in the description to download our free 10-point institutional brand audit. If you find this video useful, please hit the usual buttons, like, comment, subscribe, notify, share, and so forth. Every bit helps with growing this podcast. Well, thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.